Hi peeps, it's Tersse back in the box again. This is going to be a more normal Tersse video from my previous existence before I deleted all the stuff that I used to have on YouTube. Wish I hadn't done that now. I mean, I've got the longer uploads now, but really now I think that I should fucking just keep going with what I had, you know what I mean? Because I enjoyed what I was doing. I'm not getting the views that I used to get on my game videos, although I enjoy gaming. Apparently a lot of you don't, so you could see a return to the old Tersse coming shortly, and fewer actual gaming videos. Anyway, this following clip that I've recorded is from the BBC Sunday Politics show, and it's a perfect example of what I think American TV political interviewers, chat shows should be doing with politicians and people in positions of power, people who are lobbyists, people who have some axe to grind. When they get them on the show, they should really hammer them, man. They should get right into them and ask them the difficult questions that they know that they don't really have solid answers for, and show them up for what they are, hacks and people who just want to publicise themselves and basically bullshit you, you know what I mean, or to keep themselves in a job. The topic is the most recent scare, food scare in the United Kingdom, about horse meat being found in our frozen foods. You've got to remember that this is a thing which would never have happened 20 years ago, because we had a serious investment in making sure that food was safety, and what was on the packet, what producer says they were selling you was what they were selling you. I was disappointed when Labour in 2003, I think that's what they're saying at the show, and I remember when Labour decided that they weren't going to have these spot checks anymore on manufacturers, and they were going to go along with the deregulation, which you hear a lot about in America. Deregulate. Business can look after themselves. The free market. If they sell something bad, people won't buy it. But the point is, if people don't know they're buying shit, you know what I mean? If people don't know they're buying horse instead of beef, but they're paying a beef price for horse, you know what I mean? If they don't know about it because nobody's telling them, businesses will sell you fucking horse. This is what's happening, you know what I mean? So, all this idea, the Ayn Rand idea of the free market and the strong world win out, and people will buy what is good for them because they only buy what's good, and the manufacturers, the producers will only make what's good because they don't want to piss off their customers and end up getting put out of business. Well, we find that's bullshit in this case. Findus, a well respected name for fucking decades, you know what I mean? It's now sliding down into the slumps of second class meals. The big thing now is chilled meals, frozen meals are cheap now, and so in August last year, Findus started to source their frozen food, beef meals, from France rather than produce them in the UK. They downsized their production in the UK. That means laying people off. And they started to source their food products from a French manufacturer. That French manufacturer has since been found out to be selling them horse meat rather than beef, but we're paying a beef price for it, you know what I mean? So, can you trust manufacturers? I mean, it's not Findus's fault in a way, except that they found out 7 days before they told the government that they had found horse meat in their beef products, right? So then again, what were they doing for 7 weeks? Panicking. Should we tell the government? Can we get away with it if we don't tell them? You know what I mean? What happens if we don't tell them and then we get caught anyway? So all that was going on, I'm sure, inside Findus for 7 days, 7 fucking days before they turned around and told the government, we've got to take this food off the shelf because we've found that it contains fucking horse meat rather than beef. 100% horse meat, not just adulterated, completely fucking horse meat instead of beef. You know what I mean? I mean, that is fucking outlandish, you know what I mean? For them to waste 7 fucking days pondering over whether they should tell the government about it and take it off the shelves of the shops, right? But this is what fucking happens, right? So, Findus downsized, way off people in Britain, sourced their food from France, you know what I mean? And August, September, October, November, December, January, February, 6 months later, bang, it's fucking explodes. They're buying horse meat instead of beef, you know what I mean? Fantastic Findus, you know what I mean? But you know, it's like, this goes to the root of this idea that you shouldn't have government regulation, that you shouldn't have government checking your food, you know what I mean? We need to have government checking, and we need to have them doing checks on all manufacturers who supply food to the fucking public. Several meals should be taken at random from one of their fucking, you know, exports, imports, whatever, and tested. You know what I mean? It's a bit like, well, we don't know who's carrying drugs through the airport, so we're just going to spot check people. We're just going to, oh, he looks shifty, let's pull him over and, you know, check his bags. Oh, nobody looks shifty, well, let's still pull out 3 people out of every 100 and check them, or 7 people out of 100, or 10 people out of 100 and check them, just to see if anybody's smuggling something. That's what they do at airports, you know what I mean? That's what food safety used to be in Britain. They tested stuff on an ad hoc basis. Let's just test that batch there, let's test that batch there, you know. And all these manufacturers had to keep a sample of all their products, you know what I mean, or, you know, in a freezer somewhere for them to be able to come in and say, well, we found this you know, person dead after eating one of your meals. It was, you know, the packet we found in his bin was from this date, right? Can we go into your freezer, take that fucking sample out that you produced and test it for fucking, you know, bacteria, you know what I mean? That's what the food standards used to do in Britain. And then the government, you know, the Labour government in 2003 stopped all that, says, well, you will only go out there and work on intelligence, they call it, intelligence. That is, when somebody dies, and you find out they've died because after eating, you know, there's half a meal on the table and they're dead, you know, like, where does that meal come from? Go and check the shop, you know what I mean? That's basically what they're talking about intelligence. They have to wait for something to happen before they fucking catch it, rather than being proactive, checking stuff, and then saying that stuff can't go on the shelf because it's poisonous. You know what I mean? They have to wait till somebody gets poisoned before they fucking act on it. Well, that's not regulation. That's not looking after the fucking public health. Food Safety Agency, you know what I mean? That's what it means. FSA, Food Safety. Food standards, but it's food safety, you know what I mean? They're supposed to check the standard of food to make sure it's up to fucking human consumption level, you know? They're not supposed to wait till somebody dies and then go and take it off the shelf. They're supposed to make sure that it's okay before it goes on the fucking shelf. That's the fucking, you know, the whole idea. That's what the Drug Administration Agency in America is supposed to do. They're supposed to test drugs to make sure they're safe for you to take before the fucking doctor gives it to you, you know what I mean? So doing away with these agencies and stopping them from regulating, you know what I mean? Getting the government to deregulate, it's fucking seriously bad for our health, you know? Luckily in this case, it's just a case of, well, people in Britain don't like to eat horse. People in France do, but people in Britain don't. Plus the fact you don't want to pay the price for beef for a fucking horse. Horse meat's cheaper, you know? But you're paying beef prices for horse meat. That's basically, it's a fraud. But some of these horses might have been treated with a painkiller called bute, which can cause a blood disease, which can kill you, you know what I mean? So there is a sense that there might be a risk to health here. And why didn't the government step in right away and ban imports from these manufacturers in Europe that are being found to be included in these horse beef frauds? I don't know. They say it's against the European Union. Fuck the European Union. You're not supposed to be looking after the health of the European Union. They're businessmen selling you horse meat instead of beef. You're supposed to be looking after the fucking health of the fucking citizens, you motherfucker. Anyway, I'll let the rest of this run. So have a look at this interview, Sunday Politics. The interview a representative from the Labour Party, who's the shadow of the health minister, who's from the Conservatives, talking about what he's done and what he's not going to do and what they don't know and blah blah blah. Right, cheers.
Now, it's a scandal that has shone a light on what we eat and how it gets to our plate. In the case of some meat products labelled as beef but really horse, the routes include Poland, Ireland, Romania and France before reaching British supermarkets. In a minute we'll find out if the government is getting a grip on this latest food scandal. But first, here's a reminder of how it all unfolded. Last month, food inspectors in Ireland found burgers containing not just beef, but horse. 10 million suspected burgers were taken off the shelves of supermarkets, including Tesco, Lidl and Iceland. And this week some Findus lasagna, sold as beef, were found to contain 100% horse. It's the French food processing company Comigel in the firing line. They supply thousands of tons of frozen meat products to European supermarkets, including the likes of Aldi and Tesco. The police are now talking to the Food Standards Agency. Investigations are underway across Europe. After meeting with food industry heads yesterday, the UK Environment Secretary, Owen Paterson, warned of an international criminal conspiracy. And with more tests on meat products on the way, we've been told to expect more bad news about what's on our supermarket shelves. In a moment we'll speak to the Environment Secretary, Owen Paterson, about all that, but first I'm joined from Westminster by his shadow Labour's Mary Creagh. Mary Creagh, you've been scathing in your attacks on the government for not doing enough, but it turns out Labour stopped testing for horse meat in 2003. Would you like to apologise for that?
Well, Food Standards Authority tests for the presence of adulteration on the basis of intelligence, and the last test was done in 2003, and since then, as far as I'm aware, there hasn't been any intelligence that there's been any horse meat being passed off as beef. What we do know is that it was found in Ireland in the last 4 weeks, and the question for the Environment Secretary is why hasn't he ordered widespread tests on the 10 million beef burgers that have already been withdrawn?
Well, I think the question too is why over 7 years did you not just do some random tests? Why wait on intelligence? The intelligence may not reach you.
Well, Food Standards Agency is there to protect human health for the most part, and
so are government ministers.
It does a lot of tests on local kebab shops, chicken shops. They're the areas of highest risks where E. coli and Campylobacter can get out into the food chain and cause serious adverse effects on people. Massive food poisoning, 70,000 people, I think.
We understand that. You stopped the testing. You also ended daily government inspection of meat cutting plants in 2006. Would you like to apologise for that?
Well, I think let's keep it focused on where we are now. The government has merged the Meat Hygiene Inspection Service in with the Food Standards Agency, and the budget is being cut by £12 million over a 4-year period. That is what is going on now. The government also had its industry summit yesterday and failed to invite in representatives from the big caterers that supply schools and hospitals. So no tests are being carried out on burgers that are sitting in hospital and school freezers, where children and patients cannot make the choice about the food that they eat. Let's keep it focused on the present.
Well, let's keep it. Well, I mean, that's what you've been doing. And you've talked about, quote, illegal and carcinogenic horse meat entering the human food chain. You have no evidence for that. You've talked about it being in schools and hospitals. You've no evidence for that. You're just scaremongering to try and make a name for yourself, aren't you?
I was passed evidence over 2 weeks ago, which I raised on the floor of the House of Commons with DEFRA ministers, that horses in the UK abattoirs were being that had tested positive for bute, had been exported and entered the human food chain. I've now had confirmation that 7 horses were exported to France and the Netherlands, and that 1 ended up on somebody's plate in the United Kingdom.
1. You claim that the regulatory framework had, quote, broken down catastrophically. So how many people have died? How many are acutely ill?
Well, the problem with bute is that it causes a serious adverse blood disorder called aplastic anemia, a serious blood disorder, and that's why it's banned from the food chain. Now, we're all learning about this. We've all been learning about this. I have certainly over the last 4 weeks. And we, you know, nobody has died, and horse is safe to eat as long as it is tested for bute. But we come back to regulation.
It's not a catastrophe then, Mary Creagh, is it? Again, it's scaremongering.
Catastrophically, in that people are now making the choices not to buy processed meats, and that ministers are contradicting the advice from the Food Standards Agency. Food Standards Agency says don't eat Findus beef products. Owen Paterson says I'd happily tuck in. You cannot have government contradicting itself.
All right, you mentioned Owen Paterson. Let's leave it there and go to him, because he joins me now and he was listening to that. Owen Paterson, what should people do with the frozen meat products in their fridges?
If those products have been withdrawn from supermarkets, they should go back to their supermarket and claim a refund. What is quite clear about this, and the meeting we held yesterday with senior retailers and distributors to correct Mary Creagh, who do represent those that distribute to government institutions like prisons, hospitals and schools, we are absolutely clear that it is quite wrong for consumers to go into shops and buy a product clearly marked beef to find later that it contains pork.
I understand that. I'm wondering what people should do with the products they have. You said in the past couple of days there's no reason not to eat them. And yet the FSA told the BBC we're advising people not to eat the Findus product. So who do we listen to, you or the FSA?
You listen to the second half of the sentence, which is the dropped off the quotes, which is that I totally endorse the FSA recommendation that if a product is withdrawn from supermarkets, people should not eat it. And if they find some in their deep freeze, they should take it back to the supermarket, claim a refund.
Okay.
So I would entirely endorse the recommendation of the Food Standards Authority, which, don't forget, was set up by the last Labour government to be independent and professional.
You have told us to expect, quote, more bad news. The fact is, our supermarket shelves could be awash with contamination.
Well, we have to wait and see the results.
It could be, couldn't they?
Of let's just see what comes out of the testing this week. At the moment,
well, there's been no testing for 10 years, so you don't know.
No, the FSA, quite rightly, tests on the basis of intelligence, as Mary Cray said.
So you don't know.
But just finish. For issues which are a threat to human health. So this issue is an issue of labelling and fraud. This is a conspiracy against the public. Now, it's either a case of gross incompetence, or, as I said yesterday, I've got an increasing feeling that it is actually a case of an international criminal conspiracy. And we are quite determined to get to the bottom of this. To do that, we will have to work not just in this country. I was in Dublin a week last Tuesday talking to Minister Coveney, and this week, obviously, we'll be talking to counterparts across Europe, because ultimately this is a European Union competence.
But the fact is, Minister, people could be eating horse meat unknowingly this lunchtime. That's true, isn't it?
That is possible, and that is why we're carrying out this unprecedented screening of processed beef products. It looks as if the problem is limited to processed beef, and it looks as if there has been criminal substitution of beef with horse. Right. And that is wrong. If people in this country buy a product marked beef, they are absolutely right.
I understand that. You've said that to the Minister already. So why not go for a moratorium on meat movements within the EU until you get the full picture?
Firstly, that is not allowed within the rules of the European Common Market.
Would you like to do it despite these rules?
I would take action in order to reassure the public if there's any threat to public health. If we find there is a product which could potentially be injurious to public health, emphatically, I will take necessary action. But as we established yesterday, we, the Food Standards Authority, the retailers and the distributors are all absolutely determined to get to the bottom of this and find out where this material has come from.
Given that you're operating in the dark by your own admittance, why not ban meat products from Ireland, France, Poland, other European countries until the matter is resolved?
Well, I think arbitrary, precipitate action like that would not be helpful.
That's what the French did to us after the BSE scandal.
There was a risk of danger to human health. This, for the moment, is a labelling problem. This is an issue of fraud. This is a case of people being sold one thing and getting another. At the moment, we don't have evidence there is a threat to human health.
But the word everybody will have heard, the words there is, for the moment. You don't know.
No,
for the moment. So let's have a moratorium or a ban or whatever you choose until you can come onto programmes like this and be categorical.
No, Andrew, I've been quite clear that we should expect that there may be further bad news over the course of this week, because we do not know how far this incompetence, or worse, criminal conspiracy extends. But I can assure you, should evidence come forward that there is material involved which is a risk to human health, I will take whatever action is necessary.
A moratorium?
If there is a threat to human health, that is allowed within the rules of the European market.
This scandal has been brewing for some time. Why did the Food Standards Authority only begin rigorous testing on Thursday?
No, the Food Standards Authority's role is to concentrate on material which could be a threat to human health. This issue has arisen quite recently and is a different issue. This is an issue for the moment of labelling and fraud. This is a conspiracy on the public, passing off one thing as another.
You've said that 4 or 5 times. Findus discovered the first traces on January the 29th. They didn't report it to the FSA till February the 6th. Have you tackled them on the delay?
Well, I did talk to the chief executive of Findus UK last night, and I think I have to be cautious on this because there is a possibility of legal action. I think the lesson from Findus, which was endorsed entirely by our meeting yesterday morning, is that the moment a processor or a retailer discovers that there might be material which is improper in one of their products, they should notify the FSA immediately. And as soon as rigorous laboratory tests are being conducted, approved by the Food Standards Authority, and then the material should be withdrawn. And what I've made very clear is we will strongly support any producer or retailer who takes that action.
Okay, why you didn't call an emergency summit on this until yesterday? Why have you been slow off the mark?
I and my Minister of State, David Heath, have been working on this all through the week.
Well, you were both in your constituencies on Friday. You could have called the meeting then. Why were you not doing that in London instead of being at your constituencies?
No, we respect the arrangements we've inherited from the last Labour government, independence of the Food Standards Authority. I've been talking to them. I had a meeting with them on Thursday, and on Friday I had further discussions with them, and it was my idea that given the new evidence that had come forward, we should hold the meeting yesterday, which was extremely constructive and thoroughly worthwhile.
You got a bit of a dressing down from Downing Street, didn't you?
We work closely with Downing Street. All this talk is totally exaggerated. The meeting that I called yesterday was entirely my decision, and I had a very, very constructive
Downing Street
meeting.
thought it was too late. You should have acted sooner.
No, we've been working closely with Downing Street. I mean, DEFRA things are happening every day. Our officials are in and out. Can I just make it absolutely clear? Absolutely clear.
Yeah.
On the record. The meeting yesterday was emphatically my decision, and I called
I understand.
it.
It's not the meeting, it's the time it took. You keep on saying emphatically that this could be an international criminal conspiracy. I'll repeat the words, an international criminal conspiracy. So why haven't you called in the police?
The FSA have already had discussions with the Metropolitan
they're not
Police.
beginning. The police have told us they're not yet beginning an investigation into this criminal conspiracy.
Yes, but there has to be an incident in this country which is criminal for them to take action.
So
But
you don't know?
No, but they are working with their counterparts across Europe, and the Food Standards Authority is also working with its counterparts. So,
But if there is a criminal conspiracy, the police should be investigating it.
Yes, and the Food Standards Authority is working with their counterparts across Europe, encouraging them to work with the legal authorities there.
No, I mean, you keep on saying there's no health risks. I mean, let's just look at what's happening. We're consuming horse meat, unknown. We're consuming it from Romania, where horse infections are endemic. It's being processed by a French plant, recently at the centre of an E. coli outbreak. And yet you can still say that our health is not in any way risked.
No, what I've said is we must wait and see the results of the tests going through this week. But the case you mentioned shows the extraordinary international network of this trade.
Hence by asking why you don't have a moratorium on top of it.
Last night I heard that particular company has had to apologise to customers in 16 different countries. And I think what's important to stress is that the meeting yesterday, I expressed my concerns that the whole system of regulation throughout Europe is based on trust. There is a great trust that the piece of paper attached to the pallet guarantees the content of the pallet. What I've said, I would like to see more testing of material through the process.
Is that company still sending food products to Britain?
The only other products I know are the Aldi products which have been stopped. That is down to the retailers, though. The ultimate responsibility...
But it could still be sending it, even though there's been 16 countries, as you say. It could still be sending it.
That is down to the retailers who have ultimate responsibility for the product that they put on their shelves.
Final question, Minister. When will processed meat be categorically safe to eat again and have in it what it says on the packet?
The Food Standards Authority is completely clear that all products which are currently in our stores are safe for consumption. We are looking at a case of processed beef products where either through incompetence or through criminal conspiracy, beef has been substituted with a cheaper product, horse.
But when could we buy it with total safety and knowledge of what we're eating?
We will have results coming through at the end of this week, and obviously we'll be working for several weeks after that. And we will be giving the public assurances as we work through the detail.
Well, Patterson, thank you for joining us this Sunday morning.
Yeah, so I'm hoping you get my point from that. You know, you've got the Labour fucking person there, you know, totally overstating the position, totally blowing it. She's got to accept it, a waiver of something to fucking, you know, stand up and say, yeah, we should never have fucking taken that regulation out. We should have kept in place those standard checks on food imports and food distribution and food manufacturing, you know, as an ongoing concern, rather than just acting on what they call intelligence, you know what I mean? So, bullshit, you know, as far as I'm concerned. And then you've got the Conservative guy come on, and what the fuck's he on about, man? All he's doing is trying to cover his ass. I mean, the guy, you know, that's interviewing him, he's ready to say he's what you're in trouble with, you know, down the street's ready to say, you know, why didn't you act faster? What the fuck are you doing sitting in your hands? Why aren't you fucking doing something about this, you know? And he's like, oh, we work very well, we work hand in hand with the, you know, down the street, and, you know, everything's hunky-dory. I can see this guy losing his job, man. If he doesn't lose his job, he fucking needs to. Motherfucker, you know what I mean? That cunt should fucking have stepped right in there and done something. He's obviously a bureaucrat, you know, doesn't want to actually do anything, just wants to sit in his hands and, you know, push fucking bits of paper and send emails out, and, you know, and not get involved in anything. Doesn't want to get into a quarrel with fucking Europe, you know. Fuck that, you know what I mean? Doesn't know the power that he fucking should be, you know, swinging. He should be up to Batman and swinging that bat at Europe and saying, fuck you, we're taking no fucking more meat products for your fucking country until you fucking sort it out, Europe. Because you've got to remember, we've got our food standards agency here in Britain. What's the French food standards agency doing? Are they not fucking checking up on the 16 countries in Europe have been fucking fed this horse meat as beef? What the fuck's going on, man? And it's against the European laws to fucking, you know, stop that factory for fucking exporting food. I'd shut the fucker down, man. The French should have moved straight in there with their food agency and shut the fucker down. But this is when it comes down to government doesn't regulate anymore. Not in America, not in Europe. You know what I mean? It's like, oh no, business can regulate themselves. Banks can regulate themselves. Yeah. Oh, we don't have to step in. I mean, no. Obviously, if their product's bad, people will stop buying it. Unless they fucking don't know it's bad until they've been eaten for 6 fucking months. Right? Which by that time, if it's poisonous, it's too fucking late. You've poisoned half of fucking Europe, you know what I mean? Anyway, I wind it here. That's basically my point. We need government regulation. We need government agencies to oversee these companies. Otherwise, people with bad minds and lots of money get in control of our food, our drugs, you know, and we end up taking shit that's not good for us. Because who are we to fucking know? If a doctor says here's a pill, take it, you take it. If you go to your supermarket and there's food on the shelves, you buy it. You look on the side and see how much calories it's got, how much fat, you know what I mean? It says it's beef in there, you know. You buy it and eat it. What if that had been pork? What if that had been 100% pork and beef? You know, flavoured to taste like beef, you know what I mean? And, you know, people who are, you know, Jews and Muslims had been eating it, you know what I mean? They'd be running the streets rioting and burning things down by now. The British, you know, we got horse instead of beef. We paid the beef price for horse, and now we're just going, we just go back and get our £1.40 or £1.80 or £2.40 back for our you know, shitty fucking horse meat meal that we don't want anymore. Yeah, that's it, we get a refund. Fuck that, man, I'll sue the fucking ass after the bastards. I'd tell you, if I had one of them meals in my fridge, I'd be going down, man, and getting a lawyer, and I'd be suing fucking Tesco for selling me something. It's against the trading standards. The fact that it says on the packet and they thought it was beef, why is the fucking company selling me meat? Why are they not checking it? Why are they not checking the meat that comes from a supplier? Why do they trust the supplier? Because the supplier gives them it cheap. That would ring bells to my fucking mind. If it's so fucking cheap, how can they sell me beef so fucking cheap? Why do I have to go and buy beef for France and import it cheaper than I can fucking get beef made in Britain? That doesn't make sense to me. That would be bells in my head. I would want to check that, make sure that's beef. You know what I mean? make sure there's the right amount of beef in there. Maybe they're undercutting the weight of beef and they're just putting lots of water in it, you know what I mean, to make the meals weigh more, you know what I mean? Who the fuck knows? I'd want to check those meals if I was a fucking, you know, an importer of food selling it, like Tesco or Lidl's. I'd want to check that, I'd have some of that sent off to a lab and get it tested myself. Why didn't these companies do that? It's upon them, if they're going to regulate themselves, to do that shit, if the government's not doing it. And if they're not doing it, then we need a government agency to fucking do it for them. And we just need to raise the taxes, raise the corporate fucking taxes to pay for it. You know what I mean? If they're not going to do it themselves and we have to step in and regulate it for the government, tax the fuckers to pay for it. Pay for the fucking food agency through tax of the corporations that sell fucking food. The drug agency tax the drug fucking manufacturers for testing the fucking drugs. Why should we pay for it? It's fucking to protect us, you know what I mean? If they can't do it themselves, we've got to do it. We fucking charge them for it, you know what I mean? Anyway, it's one of you fucking bad motherfuckers.